Ever feel like you're stuck, like you're always building the same thing from scratch?
Yeah, like constantly reinventing the wheel. I get that.
Exactly. And in our world, that wheel is often a document or a process. So today, we're diving into a topic that can help us break free from that cycle: templates.
And we're going beyond just the basics. We'll explore how understanding this idea can be a real game changer for you, not just for efficiency, but for the quality of your work too.
Right. Because who has time to waste on starting from scratch all the time? Our source of wisdom for this deep dive is an article by senior technical writer Curt Robbins, and let me tell you, this guy really, really loves templates.
He does seem to have a certain, shall we say, fondness for them.
Oh, it's more than fondness. He actually compares his love for templates to Oscar the Grouch's love for garbage.
Okay, that's a bit of a quirky analogy, but I see where he's going with that. It's about finding value in something that others might overlook.
Exactly. But before we get too far, let's start with the basics. For anyone who might not be familiar, what exactly do we mean by templates?
Well, think of a template as a pre-formatted document. It's a starting point, a blueprint, and it helps ensure consistency across your work, like in terms of structure, style, that sort of thing.
So it's not just about saving a little time on formatting.
Right. Robbins talks about how templates give you greater control over your communication and documentation, and that resonates with me.
Greater control. Okay, I like that. Because for me, control in this context means less stress, fewer errors, right? And ultimately, a more polished product.
You've got it. And think about it. When you're not bogged down by all those little formatting details every single time, it frees up your mind to actually focus on the content.
It's like clearing out all the mental clutter to make room for the good stuff.
I like that analogy. It's so true. And that's essential in any field, but especially in something like technical writing where clarity is paramount.
Absolutely. Plus, and maybe this is obvious, but templates also help you stay consistent with style guides. And that's non-negotiable, right?
For sure. Imagine a 100-page technical manual without a consistent style. It'd be a nightmare.
Total chaos. Okay, I'm starting to think of templates as these unsung heroes of productivity. They're quietly working behind the scenes to make our lives easier.
That's a great way to put it. And this actually ties into another benefit that Robbins highlights, which is this idea of reducing cognitive load. Have you ever felt like you've got a million tabs open in your brain at once?
Oh, tell me about it. My brain practically lives in that state. But seriously, how do templates help with that?
When you're not starting from scratch every single time,
Yeah.
it's like you're offloading some of that mental work. The basic structure, the formatting, it's already taken care of. So you're not using up your mental energy on those things.
So it's like freeing up space to actually focus on what you're trying to communicate, which, let's be honest, is the whole point, right?
Exactly. Working smarter, not harder. And speaking of working smarter, let's talk about efficiency, because that's one of the biggest arguments for using templates.
Yeah, it's like everyone's after that efficiency magic trick, like how do we do more with less time? Less stress, ideally.
Absolutely. And Robbins actually makes this really interesting comparison in his article. He compares templates to, get this, SpaceX rockets.
Okay, now that's an analogy I wasn't expecting. What's the connection there? I'm intrigued.
Well, at first glance, technical writing and space travel, they seem pretty different, right?
Just a tad, yeah.
But both of them actually rely on this principle of reusability to be efficient. SpaceX, they don't build a brand new rocket every single time they want to launch something into space.
Okay, that makes sense. That would be a little excessive and incredibly expensive.
Exactly. And in the same way, you don't have to start from scratch with every single document. You can reuse and refine.
So clinging to these outdated methods, like constantly starting fresh, it's kind of like building a brand new rocket for every launch when we could be reusing a perfectly good one.
Exactly. And this all ties back to what we were talking about earlier with that whole cognitive load thing.
Yeah.
Imagine how much mental energy, how many resources we waste when we do things the hard way, when we could be leveraging these tools that can streamline our work.
Right. Tools like, you guessed it, templates. Okay, so let's bring this down to earth for a minute and talk about some concrete ways that our listeners, especially technical writers, can use templates. And I know one area that's probably top of mind for a lot of folks out there is job searching. Robbins actually has some interesting thoughts about using templates in the application process.
Yeah, he specifically recommends creating templates for your cover letters, which I know might seem a little counterintuitive.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. You'd think the resume would be the obvious choice, right?
Right. But his argument is that your resume, that should be this highly customized document showcasing your unique skills and experience for that specific job. But cover letters, They often involve repeating a lot of the same information, like your enthusiasm for the company, your core skills, that sort of thing.
So instead of agonizing over every single word in every single cover letter, you can use a template as a foundation and then customize it with those specific details for each company.
Exactly. He even shares this anecdote in his article about this frustrated job seeker. I think they were complaining online about how they spent, like, hours writing a cover letter.
Oh, I've been there.
Right. And Robin's response was basically, look, if you're spending hours on a cover letter, especially as a technical writer who, values efficiency, you're approaching this the wrong way.
It's true. Why waste all that time on something you can streamline? And let's be real, most of us technical writers, we don't exactly get excited about writing these long, flowery cover letters, right?
I think that's putting it mildly.
Right. Give me a good technical manual any day, but cover letters, that's where templates can be a lifesaver. But it's not just job applications where they come in handy. Robbins gives a whole bunch of examples of documents that are basically begging to be templatized. So what else is on the list besides those cover letters? So we've got cover letters covered. What other hidden gems are lurking in this template treasure chest?
Well, he talks about SOPs, standard operating procedures, being a prime candidate for templatization. In fact, he actually used a template to develop over 100 SOPs for a client.
100. Wow, that's a lot of SOPs. I guess when you're dealing with that kind of volume, a template would be essential, wouldn't it? Talk about a time saver. What else did he use templates for?
He also mentioned process and procedure documents. Oh, and internal reports. Even email communications, believe it or not.
Okay, now I'm really curious. What kind of email templates are we talking about here?
Well, one that caught my eye was he actually uses a template to politely decline recruiter emails that aren't relevant to him.
Oh, that's brilliant. I get so many of those. I need to get myself one of those templates. It's like, why didn't I think of that? But it's true. Any kind of communication that you find yourself repeating over and over again, it could probably benefit from a template.
Absolutely. It's all about working smarter, not harder, which is kind of a recurring theme for us today.
For good reason.
Right. But he does offer a word of caution, which I think is worth mentioning. While templates are great for efficiency, you don't want to rush the process of actually creating them.
That makes sense. I imagine a poorly designed template could actually create more work in the long run, right?
Exactly. And he actually learned this the hard way. He mentions having to go back and revise a client's SOP template, but they'd already created like a ton of documents using the old version.
Right. Oof. Yeah, that sounds painful, having to manually update all those documents.
Yeah, not ideal. So it really highlights how important it is to invest the time up front to get it right. It might seem counterintuitive, but that extra time you spend on the front end developing a solid template, it'll save you so much time and effort and probably headaches down the road.
It's like that saying, measure twice, cut once, or in this case, template well, revise never. So as we're talking about all this, it occurs to me that Robbins throws us a bit of a curveball when he defines what a template actually is. He encourages us to think beyond just traditional documents.
That's right. He expands the definition to include things like, flowcharts, images, even the structure of a podcast episode, which I thought was interesting.
Wow, meta. We're using a template for this very episode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It just goes to show how versatile this whole concept is.
It really is. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the wonderful world of templates, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this?
For me, it all boils down to this. Templates are tools that can free your mind. They free up your mental energy so you can focus on the things that really matter, the things that require your creativity and expertise.
It's about clearing out the mental clutter, right? To make space for the things that make our work meaningful.
Exactly.
And who couldn't use a little more of that? So, next time you find yourself staring at that blank page, remember the power of templates. They're not just time savers, they're brain savers. And they might just be the key to unlocking a whole new level of efficiency and creativity in your work.